The devastating attack on Israel led by the Hamas terrorist organization was planned for more than a year with the help of Iran. In the stealthiest secrecy, the Iranians provided weapons and training, while senior representatives of Iran and Hamas developed a diplomatic offensive with their international allies. Several of these meetings were held with senior Cuban officials, both in the Middle East and on the Caribbean island. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian visited Cuba and met with Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel on February 5. They said they talked about issues of mutual interest and international topics, according to a statement from the Islamic Republic's Ministry of Foreign Affairs. On February 25, Hamas representatives visited the Cuban ambassador in Lebanon, Jorge Leon Cruz. In that meeting, Ambassador Cruz welcomed the Hamas delegation and praised the resistance of Hamas fighters and martyrs in the defense of a just cause. On June 15, Iranian President Ebrahim Raisi publicly met with his Cuban counterpart, Miguel Diaz-Canel, in Havana. Those three high-profile meetings showed the close relations of Hamas and its chief patron, Iran, with Cuba's communist regime. The Cuban dictatorship has a long history of both anti-Semitism and support to extremist terrorist organizations in the Middle East. The Castro regime actively promoted anti-Semitic propaganda demonizing Israel and rejecting Israeli efforts to defend themselves from Hamas terrorism. For decades, Havana operated camps for training Palestinian terrorists inside the island, and in secret locations in the Middle East. According to U.S. reports, Cuba has provided key intelligence to Iran, Syria, Hamas and Hezbollah to conduct terrorist attacks. But it wasn't only intelligence. The Cubans let the terrorist organization Hezbollah establish an operational base in Cuba, designed to support terrorist attack throughout Latin America, according to emails leaked from then U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton in 2016. The U.S. put Cuba in the list of countries sponsoring terrorism in 1982, during the Reagan administration, for its ties to international terrorists and for supporting the Colombian guerrilla group M-19 and its drug trafficking operation to finance terrorism in the hemisphere. It was taken out of the list by President Barack Obama in 2015, as part of his efforts to normalize relations with Cuba.
This is a new day.
But even while it was out of the list, Havana never stopped supporting terrorist organizations. The Castro regime protected leaders of the Colombian terrorist organization ELN even after they admitted responsibility for the 2019 bombing of a Bogotá police academy that killed 22 persons and injured 87 others. Havana simply refused to extradite the ELN leaders back to Colombia, as requested by Bogotá.
Now we have major news about Cuba. The Trump administration has redesignated the island nation as a state sponsor of terrorism.
In 2021, the Trump administration put Cuba back in the list of states sponsoring terrorism because of its continued support of terrorism worldwide and for its refusal to extradite ELN terrorists and the dozens of American fugitives it harbors in its territory. Havana refused to condemn the deadly Hamas attacks that resulted in more than 1,000 deaths in Israel. Instead, it described the massacre as a consequence of 75 years of permanent violation of the inalienable rights of the Palestinian people by Israel. Once again, Cuba followed the script of demonizing Israel and protecting its ally Hamas, considered by the U.S. as one of the most violent and dangerous terrorist organizations in the world.